Okay, so for this exercise, you are going to be taking the skills that you learned last week, excuse me, and practicing them a little bit more and creating an image like Flora Borges, or this is by an unknown artist, but it's basically you're going to take two of your three or four of your self-portraits that you took, and you're going to combine them into one, and you're going to create this seamless merge between the photos. And then you're going to create a second one. So you're going to create one that's using, three photos of yourself into one. And then you're going to do one where you combine one or two of your photos with a classmate's photo. So to arrange with a classmate to get their photo, if you need help with that, let me know. So let's get started. I'm not going to go over the close cropping. Not going to go over that again, except I want to mention that we've been using this tool here, which is called the quick selection tool, which allows you to quickly select, and it kind of, Photoshop kind of guesses what part of the photo is the subject. There's also another one here. There's another tool here, which is called the object selection tool, which is a little bit newer, and it'll actually use IA. So the IA in, and it'll take a minute to analyze the image, but it can actually choose different parts of the image depending on what it thinks is the subject that you're selecting. So sometimes it'll select all the things in it. But anyways, this is a nice tool to work with. It actually does a pretty nice job. Not unlike the quick selection tool, but a little bit different. And yeah, that's something that you might want to try as well as you're going through it. I've also got some feedback from some students saying that this would be easier to do with Photoshop on the iPad, and you're welcome to do that. Photoshop on the iPad is still beta. A lot of the tools are changing a lot, so it's hard to kind of turn it into a project. But you're welcome to do that if you like. You're welcome to do this close cropping part in whichever way you want, and I'll just be looking to see how well you take care of all the little details. These are all the photos that I took. You're going to only choose minimum of 3, and there's a way to see all the photos here in Photoshop. So if you go here to Window and Arrange, let me turn my Cursor Pro on. So Window, Arrange, and it allows you to see a bunch of photos all up. It just arranges them as multiple windows, which is a useful tool to have. They're still tabbed, so if you have more than one photo inside of a tab, you can click and drag them in between these squares. That's kind of a quick way to see all your photos, be able to open them all at once. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and simplify this tutorial so I only show you one step, and then you're going to do it again. So I'm not going to show you every step that I go through. I'm going to let you go ahead and do each next step. So again, I'm not going to show you how to do the close tooling. You're going to do that yourself. Make sure that you're using your folder structure. If I've spoken to you more than once about your folder structure, I won't do any more grading of your work. So if you're wondering why things aren't graded, I've usually marked in there that I won't grade anymore until you show me that you've set up your proper file structure, just because it's so foundational. So here under Smart Objects and Adjustment Layers, and I've made some slight changes to the order of the exercises that we do in this course, just because this is a condensed course. We miss a couple of weeks for Thanksgiving and Indigenous and the Day of Truth and Reconciliation. So we have 2 classes less. So I'm still covering the same material. I've just condensed the exercises. So here under, I have created one for each portrait. So I've chosen 3 of them. And this is the front-facing one. So I've called this Andrew 22.3F Self-Portrait Front. And I'll show you how I want you to set this up. So again, already been masked. So I have this mask that I created, and you'll see here the mask is here under the channels. I can disable this mask, and you can see the rest of the image. So that's by right-clicking on it, and then enable is the same way. So it's a toggle at the top of that drop-down. One thing that's really important to remember is to go back to this idea of non-destructive editing. And we can do, I'm going to show you 2 ways today that you can work non-destructively. So adding a mask on top, non-destructive. However, this mask itself is still an arrangement of pixels. And as you have seen, it can be a fairly complex, can be fairly time-consuming, can take time-consuming, can take quite a bit of work to create one of these masks. Sometimes even now I'll go look and I'll see that there's errors. I did my mask pretty quickly just so I could put this tutorial together, but they're quite a bit of work. So if I do anything to this, if I change the size of it, if I rotate it, that is destructive. It's changing the pixels. So just like you saw the difference between a horizontal and vertical line, it's all like solid black pixels. If you turn it on an angle, it adds that aliasing. If I rotate it again, that means that the it degrades the quality of that line. It's no longer the solid black line. It's going to be this fuzzy line. So what I want to do now, I want to show you again 2 ways that you can work with this, make adjustments to it, and not lose any pixels, so not apply any changes to it. So some of you that have looked ahead, so the first thing I want to do is look at this, is because I'm combining photos, you guys are combining photos from one of your classmates. There could be photos that you take on different, the lighting may change a little bit. In order to get the photos to merge evenly, want to convert it to black and white. So I could do this here under Image, Adjustments, and Black and White, and that'll convert the photo to black and white. I have the option to flatten the image at that point, but I don't want you to do that because you will lose all the color information. What you can do here instead is you can use this tool at the bottom, which is called Adjustment Layer. This is also here as a palette, so Adjustment Layers. I don't know if we can see this as a list. Anyways, they're listed here. You can see this list here. And what I want you to do is just choose the one that says black and white. You can see there's quite a few options here. Some of them are adjustment layers, and some are actually layers on themselves. So there's quite a few different types of things here, but Photoshop calls them, for simplicity, all adjustment layers. So if I choose black and white, it shifted the photo to black and white. But here you can see it added a layer, and this layer is, I can turn this layer on and off, and my color information is still there. So this is file size. It's a small layer. It doesn't take up a lot of extra room to have both of these. So it's like having 2 files, a black and white and a color one in one, and you can switch back and forth quite easily. You can also do some interesting things with this. So you can go, if this is set at 100%, that means that the photo will be 100% black. But if I change the opacity on this, I can actually change it so it was only partially. So it's removing part of the color from it, not all of it. You're welcome to play with this a little bit later, or even in your self-portrait. If you find that you can get away with color, you're welcome to use color here. But I just want to be able to see that you used it, that you used an adjustment layer. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. The other thing that I want you to do here, and that is I want you to take these layers here. So select both of them. So I'm holding my Shift key down. I'm selecting the second layer, and then I'm going to right click on them. You're actually going to convert this into a smart object. And this is in some ways like a compound path in Illustrator, in that it's now one single object, and we can apply things to this object as if it were one object. There is a difference though, and that is that this smart object, if I double click on it, it opens up into another Photoshop file called a PSB. So what what Photoshop is doing is it's taking this original file, it's packaging it up into what's called I think it's PSB, means a large format file. Doesn't matter too much exactly what it is. It really acts like a Photoshop file embedded into a Photoshop file. So this here is like a Photoshop file, and it's embedded right here inside of this Photoshop file here. What I'm going to do, just to make things a little bit easier to work with for me, so I'm going to actually take this name here, copy. So I just hit the Enter key to go into the rename the file mode. I'm going Command C to copy it. Then I'm going to go here to this layer name. I'm going to double click on it, and I'm going to give it the name Front, Portrait Front. And actually, I'm going to double click here, and I'm going to get rid of everything just so I can make it easier to see. I'm going to just call it Self Portrait Front. So this is just an internal name, but it'll help to keep things organized in the next stage. So go ahead and do that. Take all your photos, add an adjustment layer, like this here, add this adjustment layer, black and white, and right click on it and go Convert to Smart Object. And make sure it's named in a way that makes sense. So Self Portrait Front, Self Portrait Right, Self Portrait Left, whatever, if you want to call it à gouache or à droite. So if you want to do your French, whatever, it's up to you. Just make sure that you're keeping your layers organized. And we will go to the next stage. So here I want you to create a new file, and this is going to be the place where you're going to combine these 3 or 4 faces all into one. And so this one is going to be 960 pixels. So this is just to keep the file size small. So here under print, you can choose letter, and under pixels, you can just choose 960 by 1242. And you're going to go 150 pixels per inch. I'm going to go ahead and create this. Here you can see we're looking at it at 100%. So we're going to do the same thing, and you can do this with each one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and name this, save it. So save as. Computer. And give it the file name, your name, 22.3F, exercise 7, smart objects and adjustment layers. And I'm going to call this 2. So I'm going up to Window, Arrange, and I'm going to go 3 up vertical. So here you can put all of the ones that you've made. So I'm going to go ahead and open the other ones. So I'll get you started, show you how to merge the photos together, and then some ways that you can play around with another adjustment layer on it. So go ahead and just drag this smart object over here. And I'm going to take this one and drag the smart object here. And so the fact that these are lined up doesn't matter too much. I'm actually going to change it, so I'm going to go Command T. And here's where the power of a smart object is, because even though I am rotating this, those pixels are still totally preserved. Nothing has changed on them. So if I double click on this, you can see that I'm opening here that smart object, and nothing has been edited. It's still exactly the same. I have my colors here and there. So I'm going to turn off this smart object. Don't save it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add a mask to this. So I'm going to go ahead and add a mask down here. And then I'm going to start thinking about how I want these images to merge together. So I'm going to take I am just going to draw right on this mask here. So you see that we have this new mask here, mask layer. And I'm just going to make sure that this is selected. So if this one is selected, you can see that the crop marks, those white crop marks are around the image. If the white crop marks are around the mask, that means I'm editing the mask. I'm going to take my brush tool, and here you can see my foreground color is white and my background color is black. In order to hide parts of this image, I'm going to need to use the black in front. So the black needs to be my foreground color. And this is my brush. I'm going to right click here so I can see what this brush looks like. You can see here that the size is 70. I'm going to start a little bit larger, and I'm just holding my shift key down and the up and down arrows to change the size of my brush, and I can see the size displayed right on the canvas. It's also important to take a look here at the tool options to make sure that all of this is set the way you want it set. And then I'm just going to start drawing. So as I draw here, the other layer is going to show through. So here I have my brush tool is just B, and my move tool is B, the same as Illustrator. And if I switch to the move tool and I look at the options here, you'll see that this is set to auto select. That means if I click on this image on the canvas, it'll auto select that one. If I click on this image, it'll auto select that one. And that allows me to quickly adjust the position of this to achieve something that maybe is a little more interesting. And really, this is up to you what you want to do with it. You can play around with it as much as you want. What I want to see though is I want to see you creating something new. So it doesn't have to look pretty, it just has to look like. And I'm just switching my background and foreground color with the X key. But you're welcome to go here and switch there as well if you want. I like using the X key because it allows me to quickly transition between these. I'm going to grab this other layer, add a mask to that, and then I can get rid of that little bit of hair that's right there. Get rid of this shoulder. I'll leave this one, and maybe I'll erase this one here. So I may want to make, I'm going to want to add another image to this, and then make my final adjustment. So I'm going to close this one because I already have it on the screen. I'm going to close this one. I'm going to take this one here, take my move tool, click on this layer, and drag it over here. And I think, hopefully you'll find it a fairly fluid process where you can just really kind of have fun. Like, it's almost like painting. And so again, you may find that you want to try doing this on Photoshop for the iPad. Maybe more intuitive way of working. But it really is, you'll find this a lot like painting, where you're just kind of revealing parts of the image. And you can really create some pretty like dynamic kind of shapes. Here I'm going to bring this center one back in, and I'm actually going to fill the whole thing. So I'm going to go Edit, Fill. So that's and that brings up the pop-up, and I'm going to fill with black. So if I fill with black, what's it's going to do is hide the whole image, and then I can paint some of the center back in. So I want to go here, and I want to paint something back in here. So take my white brush, and I just want to paint the eye in here and create this kind of weird kind of image of these merging faces. So and Command T, so Command T, edit, free transform. That allows you to rotate things. Again, there's this crosshair in the middle, so if you move this crosshair, you can actually decide where it's rotating from. This can quickly turn kind of, very weird. But this is one of those things that the more you kind of paint into it, the more it starts to kind of make sense, and the more you can kind of pull more kind of ideas into it that, and as you massage it more, it can become more interesting and less weird. But have a look at the example, the inspiration example on the Blackboard submission page. You may find that helpful for kind of where you want to go with this. So that's very rough. If I was this was a final image, I would spend quite a bit more time working on it, but I don't want to make you guys sit here and watch me having fun. What I want to do is what I really want to see in your final submission is that you took the time to make it seamless. So to make it, like it's not going to look natural, but so long as the blending of the images together using your channels and masks, same thing, channels and masks, so long as you're using those tools to merge them together, the amount of editing you can do is pretty much endless. There's no real limit to how much you can do. Or here you can see, after I went back, I saw there's a little bit of ghosting in here. That's because this image here is extending over top of this image. So I can easily edit that by changing the size of the brush and just clicking in here, switch foreground and background, and there I'm actually clarifying that quite a bit. So pretty powerful tool. I hope you guys have fun. I'm going to post this and a couple of other versions that I did onto the submission page as my attempts. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. File save. The last thing I want you to do is, and because what happens with this is when we go from black and white to color, we end up with this. The loss of color can really flatten images. It can make them feel really kind of very gray. So on top of all of this, I want you to add an adjustment layer. So another adjustment layer on top of here. And the reason that you do this at the end is you want to adjust all of the black and white photos so that they're adjusted the same way. So you're going to go here to your adjustments. You're going to grab this one called curves. And this places a curve adjustment layer at the very top. And you're going to click here on auto. And if that doesn't quite do it, that didn't do it for me, just choose one that is like a medium contrast, or even like a strong contrast. So I don't have this weird cropping thing happening here. Turn off auto select, and then I can select all of them. Just drag this down like that. Actually, composition wise, I may actually want to do something like this just because it's kind of weird. Save, and then I'm gonna do the save as a copy again. Save as a copy. Gonna save it as a Photoshop PDF. And don't worry about this here. Gonna go ahead and click save. And again, if you haven't done this yet, go here to your PDF presets, and you're going to save one here. If you've done it already, you can choose this. If you haven't done it yet, just go ahead and deselect preserve, editing capabilities, go to compression, and here, since it's a black and white image, you don't need to, it's only going to do the one, it's not going to do any color compression. So you're going to go average downsampling to, that's fine, 300 pixels per inch, compression JPEG, and go high. And then what you're going to do is you're going to go here and you are going to save preset right here. So you're going to save this preset, and here I'm going to save it on top of the one that I already have. Maybe it might not let me. Let's see. Replace. Good. Okay. So then from now on, every time I come here, I can just go and select this, and it'll automatically set all this for me, so I don't have to do it every time. So save PDF. So then before you submit this, take a look here in your folder. So make sure it looks right. Delete the word copy if you didn't yet. So once that's done, you're going to submit it here. Make sure you take a look at the rubric here. It'll give you some indication of why I'm giving you the grade that you get. Check the requirements, and then down here at the bottom, you're going to browse local files. Again, a little trick on the Mac. This is my Finder window, and this is the window here. This is the window here that Safari opened. So I could go and try and find the file here, but I can just take this one because I already found it. I've already been looking at it to make sure it was right. So I'm just using quick look here, spacebar to open it and see it. I can take this and drag it into this Finder window, and this Finder window will automatically orient towards where the PDF is. I can just click upload. Then don't forget to write a little thing here telling me what you learned, what you found frustrating. Some of you guys have been doing that, and I really appreciate it. I can learn a lot from it, and you actually get some points for that. It helps. Is a really important part of learning where you reflect at the end on what you learned. So just what you learned, what you didn't learn, what you found frustrating, what would have made it easier. Any sort of feedback on the learning process is helpful for you and me. And go ahead and click submit. What you learned, what was frustrating, what you learned, what was frustrating or easy, something else you learned on the way. So here you could actually enter, if you did end up doing close tooling on the iPad, you could enter this in here too. That could be interesting. And then you can hit submit, and then you're done. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.